Hello and welcome to another video. So I've set myself up on yet another yellow orangish tree. And it's a place in the canyon here in the wash where it's up against some sandstone walls, and I've got big old light source right up here, up to my left here on the top of this wall, which is casting reflected light down into the wash below it, where I just happen to have a really nice warm tree. And I've got a really cool looking background. So it's like a bluish, kind of almost greenish blue, turquoise colored sandstone behind it that's going back. So I'm doing the whole warm in the front, cool in the back kind of thing again. Not sure why that's been such a thing for me this week. I guess I just somehow trained my eye to recognize that. Now I see it everywhere. But I think it's working for me, so I'm rolling with it. This tree is a little sparse on the top. There's actually a bunch of trees. So there's 2 or 3 trees behind it that are more sparse than the one that's in the foreground. And the one closest to the tree is cutting it off a little bit on the right side because there's a bunch of dead space and just like a long past prime oak tree behind it. It's just dark. And then on the left of the frame, I've got some boulders that I was trying to include at first, but it just kind of made it look awkward having the trees cut off where they were. So I moved the camera forward a little bit and panned to the right so I could disinclude that. So it's just the wash in the foreground, big, bright, awesome yellow tree in the foreground, and then a cool toned sandstone wall going off to the distance. It had a really strong reflected light glow going in here. I think it actually might have toned down a little bit while I was shooting. Like I might have lost a little bit of the glow, but I think it'll still work just fine. I think it just helps like make these already warm looking leaves just kind of look more saturated and vibrant. Some of them are kind of green though. It's definitely in transition, but it's an interesting look, I think. But then all the wet sand in the foreground too it's still pretty damp from all the water that came through here. It's got a peach tone to it. There's a bunch of cool swirly tones in it, but I'm not sure you can see much of that in composition because it's as high up as it is. It's mostly just rocks. So I actually metered in 3 different places for this one. I took a meter reading right on a bunch of yellow leaves and I stuck that at middle tone. And then comparing that to the other tones in the scene, I got some white rocks in the foreground that I don't want blown out. They're not pure white. I want, lots of tone and definition still in there, but they're at about a +1 from middle tone. And then the background and in between the tree limbs where it's really dark, the darkest part of the sandstone measures about -1 2/3. So it's pretty dark for slide film, but it is a dark feature, so it should be. Tired. Worked really hard today. Notice this aperture ring will move. I don't know if it's happening when I press the shutter or what's going on. A little concerning. Let's look. Now, maybe I'm just bumping it with my finger. Shooting with my Fujinon 180mm lens. I shot 2 sheets of Fuji Velvia 50. That was actually my last 2 sheets in my film holder, so I'm gonna have to go load some more when I get back to camp tonight. But with Velvia and adding for reciprocity, that gave me an exposure time of 6 seconds at f32. I had no bellows extension. This is pretty much infinity focus, or very close to it. My bellows are right at what my focal length is. And that's about it. It's a beautiful scene. It's a beautiful area to wash. The reflected light was beautiful while it lasted. It's kind of gone now. I think I got it though. I was worried about this. So 2 shots on this one. Reflected light was pretty good on the tree and in the foreground area when I started to set up. And it was fading as I was monkeying around trying to get the camera set up. I was hoping that it'd still be strong enough so I wouldn't have to use my warming filter. I kind of wish I would have taken the second shot with that warming filter, would have fixed that, but the detail's fantastic. The focus is great, and I really like how there's a lot of color here with the oranges and the yellows, and then there's just a little bit of greens in there where one of them was still in transition, so there's still some green in here. Mixed with the blue background is cool, but the rocks are just too blue, too much sky color. And I don't think it's unusable. I can fix it. It's just that I prefer not to have to fix it because, well, fix it implies that I made a mistake, and the mistake was I didn't use my warming filter. Otherwise, I think the image will recover just fine. It's just that I'm gonna have to warm it up a little bit because it's just way too blue. At least in some areas, I want to warm all of the blues up. The background here, I was counting on this blue, so that turned out great. I just wasn't expecting the rocks to be quite as blue. I was hoping they'd be more neutral. And they are over here, which is where more reflected light was hitting. But over here, the blue cast from the sky just starts to really take over. Otherwise, if not for the blue cast, I'd be pretty happy with it, I think. So here's the final image. Let me know what you think. So this is a composition I passed several times. It's actually one I was going to shoot before the storm rolled in, and I honestly kind of feel like it looked better. The sand was dry and there wasn't all the leaves around it, which kind of gave it better isolation. But now I've got a bunch of leaves that have landed on top of the sand. The sand's a little darker because there's moisture in it, but there's some really cool patterns where there's been like rain droplets hitting on it and stuff. It's a little more cluttered than the original composition I had picked out, but there's a rock that's got this kind of branch that's kind of sweeping around it a little bit. It's got these beautiful orange leaves on it. It's really gorgeous. I really love the color on this. So I use this rock as kind of the main subject, and just it's nestled in a bunch of leaves is kind of the thing I was going for. And I think it works okay. It was enough that I've walked past it several times. It's kind of bothered me, so I decided to shoot a sheet of film on it, just one. I exposed one sheet of Velvia 50, and that exposure was 4 seconds at f45, counting for reciprocity, and not really much reciprocity, but there was a little bit of bellows extension, so I had to add a third stop for that. And it looks like I had about perfect timing on this too, because about the time I started this recording, some harsh sunlight spilled out into the composition, would have ruined it. So it's like I hit that right on the head as far as timing goes. But I think that's about all I'm gonna do. I just happen to have one sheet of Velvia left in this one holder, and I think that's about all it warrants because I'm a little shaky on the composition. I wanted to record it, but it's kind of one of those things where if something happens to this at the lab and destroys the sheet of film, I honestly won't be that hurt, I don't think. So, no, but it's a beautiful scene. I think it was well worth one sheet of film. So now I'm gonna pack it up and keep on moving. Had to think for a second which way that goes. So, I don't know about this one. I forgot that I had only shot a single sheet of film on this one too, because that's how unsure I was in the field. This is a subject I had found like a day or two prior, 2 days prior, I think, before the storm rolled through. And I'd planned to come back when the light was better. And then overnight we got that storm, but I actually thought it was better before. So the leaf litter back here, I'm not sure what I think about it. I had originally picked out a horizontal composition that included more, but I thought that was just too cluttered and it didn't look good anymore. So I went for a vertical comp and went tighter. The sand is more pristine now. There was like a footprint in it, but the brighter sand with less leaf litter in the background, I thought actually looked cleaner. So I'm not sure. Not sure what I think about this one. So it's pretty blue on the bark of these little twigs in here. That's pushing pretty blue. I mean, other than the blue limb, I mean, I think it's exposed pretty well. Exposure looks about right on what I was hoping for. It's sharp. It's very sharp. I think it's a little more cluttered than I would have preferred. Most time you kind of look for these leaf litter compositions like this, but the reds and the pinks kind of compete with the orange leaves a little bit, I think. And the leaves are dirty now too. The sand's got some cool textures where water droplets have landed on the sand. And I think that's ultimately what made me decide to shoot it, because I thought maybe the sand would be interesting. But that's like splashed up a bunch of dirt and sand up on the leaves, and they're not as clean as they were like 2 days before that. I'll scan it in. I'll see what I think of it. Maybe between now and then I'll warm up to it a little more, but here's the final photo. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks as always for watching this week's video. If you enjoyed it, you can let me know by hitting that like button down below, and hit the subscribe button if you want to make sure you catch the rest of the videos from my Zion National Park trip. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next video.